Well, hello and welcome to today's broadcast. My name is Kamoye Benjamin. I do identify as a peak performance coach. What that means is that I come alongside individuals and teams and support them to deploy themselves at the optimum mindset and skill set required in order to create the results that they want. And mostly it's a conversation about more impact, more income, more decisiveness, more clarity, more assertiveness, more cohesion, whatever more represents for you. There's an optimum mindset and skill set required in order for you to create those results. And in today's teaching, I'm going to be diving in on something that is very close to my heart, which is how to use fear to fuel your dreams. You know, this emotional charge that fear is. How do you use that emotional charge of fear to propel yourself in the direction of your dreams? Ordinarily, this is an emotion that is supposed to hold you back. Most people define fear as something that has gripped them, hijacked them. And you know, when you've been hijacked, you're not operating based on your on your wishes. You're operating based on the wishes of the hijacker. And so when fear has gripped you, how do you use that emotion and turn it in order for you to propel yourself in the direction of your dreams? I'm also going to be teaching and sharing very, very briefly on 3 misconceptions about fear. You know, fear is misunderstood by many people. We did not have the opportunity to learn about it from people who had the awareness that is required for us to understand what exactly fear is supposed to do in our lives. So we are operating on the definition that I had shared earlier in this mini series on fear, that fear is an emotion. Basic. Fear is an emotion. An emotion is a signal to take action. An emotion is a signal to take action. And so whenever we are feeling fear, fear is a signal. Fear is a signal to take action. And so how do we become aware of this fear? It's because of the associations that we make in our mind that this is a threat, that is a threat. Again, you may want to catch my mini series to really understand how you interpret certain things as threats, and therefore fear is what you feel when those things have been threatened, when those things are at risk. Catch my mini series in order for you to really understand more on this. Today we are going to dive into understanding how fear can be a fuel. How fear can be a fuel and propel you forward in the direction of your dreams. It's all in the inner game. And for us to get started on this, I'd like for you to tap into and hear this quote by a gentleman called Viktor Frankl. Now, Viktor Frankl was a prisoner in the Nazi camps. And while he was there, he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. An amazing book. And in the book, he unpacks so many great insights. And one of the quotes that's in the book that I want us to use to navigate this conversation is this: between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. This is a great quote. I'm going to read it again slowly. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. Thanks, Victor, for those great words. And if we are to unpack this and maybe say, add something, here's what I would say. For most people, it's not in that space that there is an opportunity to choose our growth. For most people, fear grips them. And in that space, they react in ways that actually hold them back and keep them stuck. And they never achieve their goals, their dreams, never realize their potential. This teaching today is to help you understand how not to become that person who is held back by fear. Jack Canfield picked up this idea and kind of put it into a mathematical equation. I love this because it unpacks the quote. Between stimulus, which is an event, and response, which is what we do, an action, all right, there is a space. there is a space. In other words, what he's saying is, between when something happens and when we take a response, there is a micro kind of space for us to do something. Look at it this way. Again, between stimulus, the words of Viktor Frankl, and Jack Canfield called it between an event and our response, there is a space. Now, you know very well that there's a quote actually that I love that says that life is 10% what happens to us. I don't have control over the government policies. I don't have control over the weather. I don't have control over how people are going to react to me. I don't have control over that. And so that's just 10%. And it's what happens. It's the event. It's the stimulus. It's the insult from somebody who doesn't know me on TikTok. It's the insult but in a comment by somebody who doesn't know me on Instagram. Between that event, that stimulus, and my response, there is a space. This is the mathematical formula for what Viktor Frankl is saying. Now, response here implies that we are operating from a heightened level of awareness where we're actually able to choose our response. And that is what his quote says, that in that space is our power to choose. That power to choose is as a function of awareness. How many times do you use that power to choose? Because when we are not operating at a heightened level of awareness, that choice is made for us by our automatic system based on how we have programmed it to act. I'm sure you've probably been at home or in a theater watching a movie like Jurassic Park, Anaconda, Jaws, and the movie is going on. There's this little girl who's swimming on the shore and the shark is coming. The movie has these sound effects, dan 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 dan, dan 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 dan, and you can see the shark is coming and you know what's about to happen. And you begin to feel the tension and the fear beginning to grip you. If I was in your house, I would be that cheeky brother who would be coming under the chair and I'd be pricking your leg. And you'd be like, "Ah, what are you doing that?" And all the popcorn flies into the sky. In that moment, you did not have an opportunity to respond. You reacted based on automatic processes that are already programmed within you. That's what I'm talking about, that most people do not use this power because they've programmed themselves in a way that they react to situations. And when those programs were put in place, they did not have the awareness to interrogate them and say, wait a minute, do I want to react like this every time a threat is registered in my system? Every time I feel fear, do I want to react like this? And that's what I'm talking about when I say that in this space, there is power to choose our response. Response implies that you're operating from a certain level of awareness. Awareness. Oh, this thing, he's updated this software the other day, and so now it's behaving differently. Yeah, operating from a different level of awareness. And that outcome is really what we seek, which is growth. And in this conversation, in this teaching today, is to propel yourself in the direction of your dreams, to create more, be more, have more, whatever it is that more represents for you. And so in order for us to use fuel that comes from fear, turn that fuel into something that will propel you in the direction of your dreams, we've got to be able to tune into this space. What is happening in this space between me feeling the fear and me responding? Now, the work of Dan Siegel, I want us to use your hand. Put up your hand like this, and I want you to fold it. When you fold your hand, what you're going to realize is that if this is a representation of your brain, all right? This is a representation of your brain. Actually, it looks like a brain. This is what you call your prefrontal cortex. It's your thinking mind. It's your reasoning mind. This is where you make calculations and you reason about, if I do X is equals to Y, will I get J, which is the result I want? No, maybe I don't want to do that. And so there's some time that is deployed here when it comes to us reasoning with events and activities. This is what Viktor Frankl is saying, that in that space is our power to choose. Choosing a response implies that we take time to reason and think. But now let's go further into the brain. Your thumb over here, I want you to tuck it inside there, and I want you to cover it with your other fingers. Inside here is what you call the emotional mind. Your emotional mind is the reptilian brain. It is primitive. It has not been schooled. That's why even as a child, when you sense a threat, there are automatic responses that you do not even know about. They have already been transferred to you from your parents. That is why, equally, when you see a small zebra, as soon as it has been born, it's just trying to find its balance and begin to, suck the milk from its mother. And it sees a lion, a leopard, a cheetah on the horizon. It knows that it needs to run. Regardless of how the feet are feeble and weak, regardless of their situation physically, they know innately that this is a threat. It's going to eat me. I need to run. We also, as children, already know that when a child touches something hot, doesn't matter whether they've never sat in a class where they were told that fire is hot. What is the automatic response? They withdraw their arm. That is as a result of the primitive emotional mind. It's the reptilian brain. And so reptilian here, reminds me of a crocodile. You know how crocodiles behave. They are more reactive than they do reason. They pounce into action in order to get whatever it is that they want. And so when we're talking about this space in between stimulus and response, we're talking about being able to bypass the emotional brain. In that space is our power to choose. Choice is a function of awareness. Choice is a function of awareness. In other words, when an event happens, instead of me reacting to it through my emotional mind, which is connected to the spinal cord, which is the cable that carries all the information onto the different muscles on what action they need to take, instead of reacting, I respond. And that's a completely different level of awareness. There are 7 levels of awareness that govern the way how we enter into the creation process to bring about the results that we want. And 4 of those 7 are reactive in nature. They are reactive in nature. And so when we're looking at using fuel that comes from fear to propel us forward, we cannot be reacting. We can only be choosing to respond, which is a function of awareness. Choice in this space is a function of awareness. Choice is a function of awareness. And so in the next few minutes, what I want to share with you is what are some of the things that are happening in this space? What is happening in this space for us to then be masterful to choose a response that will give us our outcome? Again, we're working with this quote by Viktor Frankl. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. This is a quote from a man who is a prisoner in a Nazi camp. And he's saying to himself, you know what? Between what has happened to me, which is life, 10%, and what I'm going to choose, which is the 90%, for me to determine this 90%, which is to use fear to fuel my growth, I'm going to spend some time in here. Now, for most people, that space is very small. They react. But with mastery, you can develop the size of that space. You can reprogram the way you think and the way you respond in order for you to create the results that you want. And that is expanding that space. If this is something that you know is going to be of help to you to navigate your growth and dreams, for you to stop moving around in cycles, I'm inviting you to click the link in the description and join my peak performance mentorship. It's starting this month of September, and I'd like to invite you so that I can walk with you and journey with you to help you see how differently you can engage your resources in order for you to create whatever it is that you want. Now, back into the conversation that we're having here. When you pull together everything that we are learning up until now, that one, fear is your friend. Number two, fear has a headline for you. Number three, you need to decode the message from fear. It is here to serve you. So decode the message from fear. That allows you to tap into the message. And that can only happen when you enlarge this space. So that your response will create your outcome, which is growth, which is propelled forward in the direction of your dreams. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. So how do we make the most of this space? Now, before we get into understanding how we make the most of this space, right here in this space, as Viktor Frankl said, is where we get to choose our response. But choice is not automatic. Choice is a function of awareness. Choice is a function of awareness. And there are 7 levels of awareness. And until you know the level of awareness that you are operating from when you're facing a situation or fear has gripped you, you will react. Out of the 7 levels of awareness, the first 4 are reactive in nature. The first 4 are reactive in nature. The last 3 is where you're literally responding and creating from an understanding of your fully resourced state and capacity. My invitation for you is to join me. Join me in my upcoming mentorship program, Peak Performance Mentorship, where I'm going to guide you to navigate fearful situations, to navigate these powerful emotions, and through awareness, convert that energy into fuel that really propels you in the direction of your dreams. If you don't do that, you will continue to go around in circles. You will continue to go around in cycles. And you will blame everyone but yourself for the circumstances and the conditions that are in your life. And so choice is a function of awareness. And if you do not have the awareness to be awake and alert as to how am I responding in this situation, if you are not aware, the words of Carl Jung will become true for you, that until we make the unconscious conscious, it will direct our life, it will rule our life, and we will call it fate. This is just the way my life was supposed to be. No, it was not. You've been gifted with an intellect, and that intellect is causative to shift the situations and the circumstances that are in your life. So moving on to the conversation that we're having, the big idea here is this. Choice is a function of awareness. Choice is a function of awareness. Back to my screen again. And so how do you turn the emotion of fear to propel you forward? Remember, in this space, we've said there's a message that fear has brought to you. If you missed my teaching on 4 steps to create a meeting with fear, you need to go back into my YouTube and just catch the fear series. I did talk about 4 steps to create a meeting with fear. You're in charge. Fear is not in charge. And so you summon fear and you say, sit down here. You go into the theater of the mind and you will be able to decode a message from fear. That message, which at that particular moment appears as uncertainty, you're able to turn that uncertainty into understanding through curiosity. But this cannot happen when you have been gripped by fear and you are reacting. You will react in the marketplace and make wrong decisions, untimely decisions that will cost you money, that will cost you influence, that will cost you impact, that will cost you clarity. And so, one, you need to be able to understand how to capture fear. That is the space. What is happening in this space? We are having a meeting with fear, and we are getting the message from fear, and we are decoding that message from fear, and we are moving from uncertainty to understanding through curiosity. In the meeting, that's where curiosity is being converted into understanding. Help me understand. Why are you gripping me in the night? I'm just about to go on stage. That's the meeting you're having with fear. And you're asking it very pertinent questions. Are you here to serve me or to sabotage me? If it's here to serve you, then you receive the message. Benjamin, you've overbooked your calendar. Benjamin, you have so much to do in the next week. I don't think I'm going to be able to pull this off. Benjamin, I don't think you have prepared well for the keynote that's coming up. Benjamin, I don't think that this meeting you're planning is going to turn out the way I want. You know, there's this piece and that piece and the other piece that you haven't thought about. I think you need to ask the client for this. Then I say, oh, good. So you're here to serve me. That cannot happen if you're reacting. That can only happen when you're responding to fear and saying, oh, help me understand. What do you seek from me? Where do you want me to go? Good. Are you here to sabotage me? Yeah, I see how you're here to sabotage me. You're telling me that no one in my family has ever done this. You're telling me that no one is good enough. You're telling me that I'm not good enough. You're telling me that this will go south. You're telling me. And I'm like, okay, I hear you, fear. You're not here to serve me. You're here to sabotage me based on past experiences and circumstances. And I'm not listening to you. That is how you're using fear to fuel yourself. That's how you're using fear. You're literally taking this dump of chemical and electrical charge into your system that grips you to say, wait a minute, what do you want me to do? And then shift the situation, take that fear and then deploy it into your system to bring clarity, to bring understanding. The other way that you're using fear to fuel you forward is using the faculty of imagination to think of all that could go right, and then you take necessary action. Oh, I cannot tell you how many times when fear grips me, I use my mental faculty of imagination to think of all that could go wrong. Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night because you thought you had somebody walking in your house? You thought you had somebody opening the door? Where does your mind go to? Your mind begins to think about how the door has been opened, how this person has come into your house and they're tiptoeing, how they've already unlocked your bedroom door, how they have come there and they have clobbered you and they have hit you, how they have taken your money. Now they have already, you can even see the following morning the police car is parked outside your compound. You can even see your neighbors coming around in Lesos. It's 2 a.m. in the night, people asking you what happened. You in a flash of a second, you've used your imagination, your mental faculty of imagination to think of all that could go wrong. You've thought about how you will be. You know how it is. You know what I'm talking about. I have done this myself. And so through mastery, this is a peak performance secret that when you become aware of a threat, fear is causing you to become aware of a threat. You don't sit there and see how your business is going to go down and how you're going to be auctioned and how the bank will come for your money and you can already see yourself and your children on your streets. No, you're using your mental faculty of imagination in the wrong way. That is the same thing that Napoleon Hill, when he wrote the book on imagination, said. He says, man's only limitation lies in the use of his imagination. He didn't say man does not use his imagination. He says in the use. The way that you use your imagination is your only limitation. And so you either use it to creatively bring forth what you want or to creatively bring forth what you don't want. And that takes mastery. And that is back into this space, this space of awareness. Choice is a function of awareness. To choose, to think creatively and think of all the possibilities is a choice of, is a function of awareness. It's a function of awareness. And so the second thing we are doing here is we're using the faculty of imagination to think of all that could go right. And then we take the necessary action. My friends, this is how to use fear to fuel your goals, your dreams, and your desires. Because the opposite is fear is going to grip you. Fear is going to hijack you, literally, and block you from creating what you know is possible for you and through you. Let's quickly talk about, as we land here, the 3 misconceptions about fear. Most people do not understand the emotion of fear. And one of the most either retweeted or shared memes is one of those memes about fear. And what does it say? That fear is false evidence appearing real. The motivational speaker who said this, when you heard it, they need to repent. Because fear is not false evidence. Unless you are hallucinating, unless you are imagining up things that don't exist, and therefore utilizing your imagination in the wrong way and triggering emotions, because your system can be hacked. Your system can be hacked. If you want to imagine for yourself bad situations, what is your body supposed to do? Create joy for you? It's going to give you what is sufficient. It's going to give you fear. It's going to give you the calibrated amount of chemical and electrical charge dumped into your system so that your system can read that as fear. I need to take action. I need to either freeze, fight, or flight. And so we're not talking about mental unwellness. We're talking about when you're whole, you're fully resourced, you're aware of what you're creating, you're moving forward in the direction of your dreams to create more, whatever more represents. And then guess what? Boom, life gives you a pop quiz and you feel fear. In that particular moment, that fear is real. The evidence is real. And it's seeking to get your attention. At the beginning of this mini-series, I talked about if you're standing on top of a building that is 60 floors up, when you get to the top and you're moving towards the edge of that building, you're moving closer to the edge of the building, what do you sense? That thing you sense, the caution, watch out, you might fall over, and you begin to feel fear. That's your system at work serving you to move away from a situation that it knows it cannot secure you from. That fear is real. The evidence that you could fall is real. And more so if you're standing on what is a slippery ground. If there's water and your feet are not able to keep you stable on the ground, the more fear you feel. If the ground has loose chipping, and there's wind, your mind is quickly calculating the speed of the wind. It's quickly calculating how many floors down. It's quickly calculating your body weight. The possibility that if you fall, you will still be alive. All these calculations are happening. And fear is sending a warning and it's saying, hello, I don't like where you are. You need to move from the edge. I'm not able to save you. And as soon as you move away from the edge, you can feel that emotion dissipating. You can feel it going down. So this idea that fear is false evidence appearing real is some macho cheap motivation gimmick to try and hack yourself into performance. And it doesn't work. Because fear is trying to get your attention. When your dog, which watches over your property and your compound, is barking, when it's barking and it's saying there's an intruder, are you able to say, my dog has this habit of just barking, for no reason? The bark is fake. There is no intruder. Forget about my dog. No. You will walk to the window and you would look at, hey, Puppy, what's happening? Is there somebody there? You want to respond to that. You want to respond to that message. And so fear, when you hear people telling you that fear is false evidence appearing real, unless they're talking about individuals who are in a psychiatric condition, an institution, unless that's what they are referring to in the real world, fear is your friend. And it's an emotion that's designed to get your attention, awareness of a threat, so that you can take the appropriate action. And in today's teaching, it's about how do I take this fear and the emotion and decode the message and use it to fuel myself in the direction of my dreams. That's the first big misconception about fear. The second misconception is that fear is bad. It is weakness. As a man, I have been taught that I ought to be courageous, that I ought to be bulletproof. And any admission of fear is weakness. I don't know whether that's how you are socialized, but if you've grown up in my generation and seen the generation that was before us, I'm in my 40s now, the generation that was before us, the big message is that fear is bad, that fear is weakness. And that's a misconception about fear. Most people are not even able to admit that they are feeling fear because it appears as weakness. And that's a misconception about fear. Because if you think that fear is a bad emotion, you try to expel it. You try to cover it up. You try to avoid it. You hide it. Even when it is causing you to become aware of a threat that is genuine, you don't want to admit it. Fear is your friend. Let's go to the third one. And this is a big one for most people because as a person of faith, what does that mean? It means that I acknowledge Christ as Lord over my life. And in the circles that I'm in, and maybe even in many circles that you've been, you've seen this kind of posters. Faith over fear. Feed your faith, starve your fears. If you're watching up until now, you already know what is so wrong about this statement. Because fear is your friend. So how do you feed your dog? How do you starve your dog? How do you starve the dog that is supposed to watch out for you? We're being told to starve our fears by people who don't understand what fear is. We're being told to starve our fears by people who are supposed to be in a psychiatric institution because they are imagining things that don't exist. I don't even know how to bring these two ideas together. Because what does faith imply? Faith is the evidence of things hoped for, things not seen. Faith is a chemical, again. Faith is a chemical that is induced into our system that produces 100% belief in an idea that is not yet seen with the physical eyes, but has been already realized through our intellectual faculty. We can see it in our mind, we can see it in the theater of our mind, but it does not yet exist in the physical. That is what faith is. It's not a religious concept. Faith is induced, and it's a chemical state as well within our body where everything within us, every cell in your body recognizes that idea is 100% legit. And I believe 100% in that idea. That's what faith is. So how can it be the opposite of fear? Because they are always put together as two sides of the coin. I don't think that's accurate. And if you look at what fear is a threat, is an awareness of a threat. So how does the awareness of a threat become the opposite of an awareness of a possibility? Are you seeing my struggle in trying to connect the two? And that's the big idea. When you're told that For every fear, have faith. That tells you that the person who's describing fear here does not understand what fear is. Fear is an emotion that causes you to become aware of a threat. When somebody's telling you have faith, I get it. Their intention is to inspire you to step up and, rise to the occasion and do what you've never done. But what do you do to the fear? You dump it. It's like it's illegitimate. It doesn't have its place. That it's bad. Do you see the misconception again? These are two different things, and they ought not to be put together. Matter of fact, when I look at the scriptures where this conversation of fear comes in, it is in 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 7. And I'm reading from the Amplified Version, which says, "For God did not give us a spirit of timidity or of fear or cowardice, but he has given us a spirit of power and of love and of sound judgment and personal discipline, abilities that result in a calm, well-balanced mind and self-control." This puts into perspective exactly what we're discussing fear to be here. That God did not give us a spirit of fear, but instead what he has given us is awareness, understanding, a spirit that has power, a spirit that is able to summon that fear to the meeting and say, "Can you sit down? Let's have a conversation, sound judgment. Are you here to serve me or are you here to sabotage me?" And that discipline and the abilities that result in a calm. Calm is the best place for you to propel your dreams forward. Balanced mind and self-control is response, not reaction. So challenging this idea that faith is the opposite of fear. This scripture does not even talk about faith when it's talking about a spirit of fear. Actually, it does contrast the spirit of fear with a spirit of power, love, sound mind. That sound mind is the awareness, the mastery to step in a situation and say, "Hey, you guess what? You don't rule me." It's telling the emotional brain, "Hey, wait a minute. I have a higher understanding of what's going on. I'm in tune with my resources and capacities to create what I know is possible for me and what God wants to create through me." That's the spirit that I have, not the spirit to fear, not the spirit to be gripped, to be hijacked by data that has not been processed carefully. I am causative. I am responsible. I am in charge. And that's what that scripture actually says. And so this sums up this long teaching. I normally want to do about 20 minutes, but this sums up this long teaching on how to use fear to fuel you in the direction of your dreams. And that's a very important thing. Now, if you want to master your inner dialogue, your inner game, I'm inviting you for private coaching. I'm inviting you to come and work with me and my business partner, Rosie. We've done this for hundreds of clients as we guide them to master their inner game, to develop the awareness, to operate at level 5, 6, and 7 of the 7 levels of awareness. And that's possible. It's possible for you because it's been the story of my life and also of the many that have come through our private coaching sessions. So reach out to me and let's start a conversation on how we can guide you to gain mastery of the emotion of fear, gain mastery of your inner dialogues and narratives and how they hijack you to hold you back from creating the results that you know are possible for you. Whatever more represents for you, I'm welcoming you to the coaching chair so that we can begin a conversation. Head out to catalyst.ke or click the link that is in the description below and let's start a conversation with you for private coaching. Thank you again for watching Peak Performance Secrets. This is the end of this mini series on fear. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, wow, I request you to go and do that. And please click that notification so that you can receive all alerts about the content that's coming up. We're out here to serve and raise a generation of leaders. And so we are teaching, we're coaching, we're giving our best stuff away. Wherever you are in your growth journey, you will find something that will speak to you. And as I come to the end, I'm inviting you to type in the comments, what is an idea that you took away from our time here today? What spoke to you? What resonated with you? I'd love to hear from you, even as you subscribe. Thank you so much for your time. Blessings. Be well, and bye for now.